Hi everyone. Before Sandra does the polite introduction, I thought maybe if you wanted we could maybe bring the chairs in a bit to create more of a group atmosphere. Helps with meditation and helps my confidence. The hall doesn't look so empty.
Yes.
I'm very glad that you did come down tonight. Now, I'm going to introduce Sandra, who's going to introduce me.
That's the one. But please come in close, it's far more friendly. Because this is the friendly Wednesday night meditation brought to you by the care group. So welcome once again. And I just wanted to say a special thank you to all our new friends that have come along since we had the care retreat a couple of weeks ago now already. And thank you for all the lovely feedback. I've been reading through it and it touches my heart. But I just wanted to, lots of people have been asking how they can get involved with the Buddhist Society, and I just wanted to, you won't be able to see this online, but if you go onto the BSWA website, you should be able to find this notice for the Kalyana Friendship Community. And it's all ages, so not just for the young folk, it's for everybody. And there's a really inspired group of people who will be getting together every second and fourth Saturday of the month, starting the 22nd of January. And there will be hour-long monastic-led session for meditation, a Dharma reading and a sharing circle. So if that sounds good to you and you want to come and be part of that, then have a look online and come and join us. But without further ado, I'll hand you over to Drew. Drew needs no introduction.
No, I do.
Apparently he does. But no, in all seriousness, Drew is a former president of the BSWA, and he is a businessman and he's got a young family. And I used to work with his wife, and she's a beautiful woman, so you're very lucky. And and tonight's topic, and so is she. I think she's very lucky.
Yeah, that's right.
I'll just continue with my foot in mouth here.
You remind her when you see her at work.
I will. Your talk tonight.
We're doing, continuing the series on the Eightfold Path, and I'll be talking about right thought, which is number 2 on the path.
Okay.
Yeah.
I should engage the right thought for the right speech,
Yeah.
For the introduction.
Yeah.
But I'll hand over to you while I'm winning. Okay, see ya.
Thanks, Sandra. Thanks for coming down, everyone. I keep getting invited to do these talks, and I keep accepting. I've done over half the Eightfold Path now. So we've done right view, right speech, right action, right livelihood. I'm going back to right thought because I thought it was a little bit tough, so I'll get my steam up first, and that's what we'll tackle tonight. So the format will be a half-hour meditation. I'll try for a half-hour talk, and then we'll have a little sort of 10-minute Q&A session after that. We'll be okay. Oh, and hello to everyone online, out there who's watching. I think we get about 300 or 400 people joining in online as well, which is good. And these lay Wednesday night sessions seem to be gaining a bit of traction. I notice that online the views can get up at around 2,500, 3,000 people, and we're getting some in the hall now, like a good sized group tonight, which is great. And we're not here to usurp the monks in any way. It's just an opportunity for people to do teaching, and especially for the new people to Buddhism, they might be curious about hearing about what lay people who've been practicing for a while have got to say. But the monks are still the authority. Okay, so we'll do a guided meditation. If we can just maybe grab the lights. Thanks. We'll dim the lights. Great. Makes me look younger. But we don't have to worry about that because we're going to close our eyes. So if we close our eyes, just get comfortable in our seating position. whether you're on a cushion or a chair, just have your back nice and straight, your head pulled back. You don't want to be slumping your neck. Nice straight shoulders. This enables you to breathe. Just taking a minute to get the right spot. And then we're going to start with a body sweep to get into the meditation. So we'll start with our feet. We'll just try and drop all our thoughts from a busy day and just wiggle our toes. Say hello to our toes. Give them a wiggle, give them a feel. And then we'll come up to our feet, soles of our feet. And just feel them planted against the ground, carrying us all day. And then we'll keep coming up to our calves. Maybe just give them a little tension squeeze. Each one, just be mindful of it. This is a mindfulness exercise. Feeling the body, being aware of the body. Focusing on the body so we can drop our thoughts. Just see if there's any tension in those calves. How they might be. And coming around and feeling the front of our calves, just giving them a little squeeze as well. And then coming up through our knees. Are there any little pains or aches? Now we're giving them a rest, sitting down. And we come up to the top of our legs, to our thighs, back and front. Give them a squeeze, give them a feel. You're in a comfortable position on your thighs and on your buttocks in the chair. Come around the lower back. Just give it a squeeze. Just feel if there's any pain there. If there is, got a sore back. Just acknowledge it. Just let it be. You have to wiggle occasionally. You have to wiggle. It's not going to ruin the meditation. Discomfort will ruin the meditation. And then coming up to our stomachs. Just feeling, is your stomach knotted in any way? Is there any tension there, any emotional tension? If there is, it's okay. Just acknowledge it. Maybe at the end of the meditation, if there is tension there, come back to it and feel, is it less? Coming up to our chest, being aware of the rise and fall of the chest as the breath comes in and out. Is there any tension in the chest? Any emotions in there? Any tightness? Just acknowledge it. Maybe come back to it later. And then coming up to our shoulders. Can we let them sag a bit? Can we just sort of almost put them down and let them relax? And then coming up to our neck, nice and straight. Our head back. That posture good. And coming up to our face. Is there any tension in our face? Is there any tension around the corners of our mouths? Are the corners of our eyes tight? We feel if they're tight or if they're relaxed. Between our eyebrows, any tension there? Are we gripping expressing emotion, holding the thoughts of the day. Can we focus on this area and just drop it? Let it relax. And feeling our scalp. Is it buzzing? Is it buzzing with all the thoughts that are going on inside? And then finally, just coming back down a bit to our hands. Are they comfortable in the position on our lap? Are our arms completely relaxed? And then finally, coming to the nose, the last part of the sweep. Are we aware of our nostrils? Are we aware of the breath? Can we give 3 deep breaths and feel it coming in and out? And in all the way into the chest and out. And in all the way into the chest. Big deep breath. And then out. And now can we just focus on the rhythm of our breathing? If it's soft, it's soft. If it's strong, it's strong. Not interfering. Just watching the breath. Feeling the air come through the nostril. Feeling the air come out as the chest collapses. And by watching the breath, we're not engaging with the mind. Thoughts are coming and going, but by watching the breath, we allow them to go and to not circulate and dominate. Just watching the breath in and out. Relaxing. Just slowing down our thoughts by slowing down our urgency, giving ourselves some peace, and using the breath as the tool to focus the mind away from our daily thoughts. returning to the breath instead of our thoughts, letting them come and go, not clinging. Allowing the body to relax, allowing the muscles to drop. Any sounds outside are just like thoughts. They just come and they go. As we follow the breath through the tip of the nose, mindful of each breath. Coming back to the breath. Feeling the breath. not clinging to your thoughts, not clinging to your identity, just following the breath and being a human being. Back to the breath. In and out. Not thinking, but feeling the relaxation that's being generated in your body as you follow your breathing. Slow down your thoughts, feeling it. letting go of your thoughts, following the breath. Last few minutes of the meditation, again, feeling our body, feeling if there's any relaxation, revisiting those parts that may have been tense. In a minute I'll ring the gong 3 times, and on the 3rd time we can come out and open our eyes. Okay, hope that was good. I tend to do a little bit more talking during that meditation than maybe some, just because I assume that maybe there's a lot of newbies that come down, and whether you're a newbie or an oldie, if you haven't meditated much or you're not getting much meditation at the moment, like me, I find that I have to keep pulling my mind back, and when you're new, it's handy for someone to do it externally. Anyway, if you had any feedback on that meditation, good or bad, I'll take it. Come and see me afterwards. Always looking to improve. And hello to anyone online that's joined us. I know that some people at home might be dealing with kids and cooking dinner and whatever, and then they tune in just for the talk bit. So tonight's talk is right thought, or sometimes called right intention, which is really the same thing. On the Eightfold Path, it comes after the start, which is right view, which I've talked about in another session. You can see that on YouTube. Right thought doesn't get a whole lot of talks. I was looking around when I was going to do this series on the Noble Eightfold Path, and some get a lot of talks. Mindfulness, right view in particular. Almost everyone does right view because it's such a broad subject. Right speech, not so much. Right action gets a lot. Right livelihood doesn't, because it's quite simple. And right thought doesn't get much either. So I did a bit of scrounging around in the suttas, and that's how I like to base these talks. The Noble Eightfold Path gets mentioned quite a bit as sort of the 8 tools to generate insight, which then will lead to awakening. And just in case you didn't know, it's your first time, it's right view, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, what you do for a living, right effort, and that'll be a talk I'll do in the future, right mindfulness, which is very popular at the moment with everyone, and then finally right samadhi or concentration or meditation. And all the factors of the Eightfold Path work together at the same time. It's not like you get right view and then you solve all that, and then you get right thought, and then you've completely solved that, and then you get to go to right speech. You sort of have to do a little bit of everything at once. So in the suttas, I really only came up with one from a sutta that I barely ever read, and I need to get stuck into it. I don't even have a copy of it at home, actually, and it's the Samyutta Nikaya. And I'll just cover this briefly, this sutta and the points of it, and then talk more broadly about right thought. So in this particular sutta, the Buddha's at this time hanging out with his monks and just giving them a little talk. I think it might have even been at the monastery that he founded. So of interest is that the Buddha wandered for many years, and then he got a lay merchant or businessman or someone like me, basically, on board, and then that guy he bought a whole lot of land for the Buddha and gave it to the monastics, and then paid for the building as well, which was pretty good, and then carried on living his lay life and being a businessman, but was a disciple of the Buddha. And in fact, I've been to that place because it still exists in India. So if you go on, now that the borders are open, at the Buddhist Society, every second year they run a pilgrimage to India. I think it cost me like $8,000 all up for flights and accommodation and whatever, and you get to go to all these sites that are talked about in the suttas, which exist for real. And that really helps your practice, because it cements the fact that it's real, like the Buddha existed and these places existed. And I remember specifically we went to what's called Vulture's Peak, which is talked about in the suttas all the time, and we did a meditation where the Buddha did a meditation with the group of monks on many occasions, and speeches were given, and it's really, really inspiring to do it. So if you can afford it and you've got the time, I highly recommend doing the pilgrimage to India. And it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of non-Buddhist stuff that's done as well, like museums and the rest of it. Very, very good. So in this particular sutta, he says to the monks, and so what is right thought? And he summarised it into 3 points. The first one being, when once you've established right view, what are the mechanics of the thought that comes out of that view, and the view being how the world works and how Buddhism fits in and how you can be liberated. And so sort of on almost a daily basis, he's talking about the use of right thought on a actually minute-to-minute basis. And he says that the first thing is not to have thoughts or a focus on anger or hatred. They call it ill will in the suttas. Whatever you can do, the Buddha says, don't allow that stuff into your mind. Not only is it a waste of time where you're not going to solve any problems, actually you're going to generate more problems. And he says you're going to generate those problems primarily because if you've got that in your mind as a fixation, you can figure it out. You're going to end up in wrong speech, arguments and the wrong words and breaking relationships and starting wars. And then that will lead to wrong action. The anger and hatred goes into speech, and then it goes into action, and then action obviously has consequences and karmic footprints and things that you can't undo. The second sort of right thought or intention that the Buddha said you needed to cultivate of the three was harmlessness to other living beings. So he's saying you should always be thinking, how can I avoid hurting this person or this animal or whatever else, and again reduce my karmic footprint and not get caught up in the wrong thing. So that's quite a good thing. And people, when they come to Buddhism, and they hear that, they say, "Oh, harmlessness. Oh, okay, so we've got to watch out for the ants and all the rest of it, and never ever harm anyone." And then what happens if someone's going to harm me, but I can't harm them? And then I'm defenseless. Well, the answer is that you can be defensive. You don't have to be the doormat and get walked all over, but you shouldn't have the intention or the thought that you're going to harm other beings. And if some ill will or anger is coming your way, then by all means, you have to defend yourself. And I'm not saying like take up swords and carry on, but harmlessness is harmlessness to other living beings, and therefore harmlessness to yourself. So you're not getting involved. By being defenseless, you would then actually be causing harm to yourself. So that's the second one of the three. And then probably I think the most important one that I'll talk about quite a bit in the half an hour we have. The third right thought on a moment-to-moment basis are the lessening or the renunciation of desires. That's the third thing that we should be striving for in the daily momentary mechanics of our thoughts. And then this turns into a whole talk on its own because it's really one of the cornerstones of Buddhism is lessening your desires. So there's multiple ways to come at it. First of all, if you're lessening your desires, then you're not caught up in a whole lot of thinking and stuff, and you then have more space to increase peace in your life and work on wisdom and insight and the other aspects of the Eightfold Path. And the thing about desires is the more desires you have, the more you get and the more you get. And they can never be satisfied. It's just even common psychology that once you get something, once you fulfill that desire, it's really just momentary, and then you want the next thing. And then you want more, and then you want a bigger buzz, like being addicted to a drug. You need more and more and more to fill the gap. And where does it stop? Well, it doesn't stop. There's a famous psychology experiment. I can't remember what decade it was done in. It might have been the 90s, where some clever whizzes at Harvard or Yale or something or other in the psychology department, just talking about harmlessness, decided to hook up some electrodes to these rats' brains. you can just imagine these guys in white coats pointing sticks into these poor rats. And what they did was they hooked up these electrodes, and the rats had a choice. They could eat some yummy cheese, or they could push a pedal and the electrode would deliver an impulse to the most pleasurable part of their brain. I can't remember what it's called. I'm not a medical scientist. And famously what happened was these rats, they just kept pushing the pedal. They kept pushing the pedal and getting the impulse. And at the time when I heard, I thought it was unbelievable, but the rats starved themselves to death. They never went for the cheese, and they died of starvation. Now, that's a very unfortunate end for the rats, and I'm not sure about the ethics of that experiment, but it shows that desires can't be satisfied, and if you can get your desire, you always want another one. So the rat always wanted to keep pushing for more, and it never stopped, and then it led to their downfall. So the Buddha 2,500 years ago, he said one of the keys to even if you're not going for awakening or wisdom or anything, but you just want a bit more peace in your life, he went the opposite way, and he was probably the first guy to do it, I think. I don't know about the other ascetics at the time in ancient India. He said, lessen your desires. The less you have, the better it is. Now, in layman, laywoman world, here we are today, and you've got a layman up here giving the speech. That's a pretty hard thing to do, because especially in today's society, there's just bucket loads of stuff, essential stuff being thrown at you with whatever, TV. And now we've got these silly smartphones, and yet they just take over your life, and people are just hooked into the desires of the phone, of whatever, Facebook and Twitter and this and that, and like the next hit. And if the Buddha was alive today, he'd say, put that silly thing down. Like it's just feeding more and more desire and not leading to anything. And as far as I'm aware, actually, the monks aren't allowed to have smartphones. I think. I don't know. Maybe they relax the rules. Or their own personal computers as well. I understand at the monastery they're only allowed to access the computer room at a certain time of the day for a limited amount of time, except for maybe Ajahn Brahm because of all his emails. So the third right thought, lessening of desires, is a big one. And the Buddha then goes on to give, following this sutta, a talk called the dark chain of causation, and I'll tell you in a second. He runs through all the steps that lead basically where desire appears, and then the bad outcome that it leads to. So this dark chain of causation sutta, explaining desires, he says, right, everything starts with feeling. Now, this is not to say that feeling's bad. Feelings can be good. And you'll notice in the meditation that I had an emphasis on feeling your body. And as an aside, actually, if you do a bit of reading about the Buddha and the Devas or the godlings or the people who exist in the other realms, which actually I note in the latest edition of the Enlightened Times, there seems to be a funny focus at the Buddhist Society at the moment on Devas and people talking about how we had the rains retreat or whatever, and surely the Devas were looking down. Who cares about them? Worry about yourself. They don't care about you. We're not here to be worshipping godlings and carrying on. We're here to be gaining insight and enlightenment, and worrying about those people is just a distraction. So in some of the suttas, the Buddha talks about the Devas, and he says that, yes, there are these higher beings in different realms, but because they have less feeling, because in some of the realms they don't have physical bodies, it actually makes it very difficult for the practice. And in some of the other suttas and tools and methods that the Buddha gives for gaining mindfulness, and then ultimately enlightenment. Feeling and using the body and the feelings of the body to basically, let the thoughts out is a very important thing. So I don't think people should come to the Buddhist Society and go, right, I've got a lot of bad feelings, I'm just going to do a spiritual bypass and meditate my way to spirituality and then I won't have any of these bad feelings. Actually, you need to use them. Yes, sure, it's not good to have bad feelings, maybe you can do something about it, but definitely don't ignore them. They're an important tool in Buddhism as part of the package with other things to get you where you might want to go or to make some progress. So in this dark chain of causation of the result of desires, he says things start with feelings, and feelings can be good or bad. So, and then feelings, the bad ones, can lead to craving. Craving then leads to pursuit of the craving. Pursuit then sometimes can lead to gaining of whatever thing it was that you desired. Once you gain something and own something and cling to something, then this leads to more decision making and more branches in the pathway and the reinitiation of this path. So then that leads to lust for more gaining. Lust then leads to attachment. Attachment then leads to possessiveness. Possessiveness of objects or states then leads to pettiness. Pettiness then leads to defensiveness. And once you're defensive, then you're in conflict. And once you're in conflict, then wrong speech, wrong action, karmic footprint, we're trapped in this whole thing, and we can't get out of it. So again, that third point, the renunciation of desires in right thought after not harming beings and not being angry and hateful is a very, very important thing, and really it ties back into the Noble Four Truths. So this is where the Buddha said that life is unsatisfactory, and this is the Noble Fourfold Truths sort of sit above the Eightfold Path. He says life is unsatisfactory, and it's unsatisfactory because we have cravings or desires for things. The third is that there is a way out of it, though. There is a way to lessen this, and we've just talked about that. And then the fourth Noble Truth is the pathway is the Noble Eightfold Path, and then we drop into what we're talking about tonight. So the renunciation of desires is almost the name of the game. Almost the real aim of Buddhism is the development of wisdom through the various factors of the Eightfold Path. And typically, people come to Buddhism, they just go, right, I'm doing meditation with a little bit of mindfulness, and then everything else will fall into place. But unfortunately, it doesn't work like that, and you have to do all parts of the path. And to make the space to do all parts of the path, you have to lessen your desires, which is no mean feat in today's world. And I guess there is one way. There's one sort of constant thought experiment you can do to reduce your attachments to things that aren't important. And ultimately, in Buddhism, nothing's important in the end. And the Buddha talked about it, and he said, in the state of the universe, according to Buddhism, there's really only three things. There's unsatisfactoriness, which is talked about in the Noble Fourfold Truth, and then you want to get into the Eightfold Path to solve that problem. There's only impermanence. So, whenever you achieve that desire, then your situation changes, and then you have another desire. Or you've achieved the desire, you've sort of briefly satisfied it, and then you've got to have another desire. So things are ultimately unsatisfactory. They're impermanent, and we can see that in the world. Like, everything is constantly changing, even in our own lives, even our physical bodies. We're going from 7-year-olds to 14-year-olds to 21-year-olds, and so on and so on. Our jobs are changing, even our personalities change. Everything changes, and that's sort of the big rule number 2 of Buddhism. And then the third one is the doctrine of non-self. So if you come to Buddhism, ultimately you come across the fact that because things are impermanent, that therefore means there can't be a permanent self or a soul. So Buddhism is a religion where there's no soul. There's just a conglomerate of feelings and desires and karmic plays that have to roll through, and there's no self. And an easy way to think about that, or maybe convince yourself at the start, sort of fake it till you make it, is the analogy I just gave before of a person moving through ages. So if you think about yourself as a 7-year-old, that 7-year-old is vastly different to a 14-year-old teenager, vastly different. And then you go to 21. All right, maybe a 21-year-old, I wasn't, not so different to a 14-year-old, but then you go to a 35-year-old, or you go to a 44. A 7-year-old, the 7-year-old Drew Bellamy, it just does not exist anymore. It was impermanent, and I'm no longer in the playground playing Superman or whatever. I now have a son that's going to be doing that. I'm the guy burdened with a business and responsibilities and family and all the rest of it, and there's no way that I have really any sort of connection to that 7-year-old. And if you can look at yourself and be honest with yourself about things and about that, you may start to come around to the fact that the Buddha is right, and ultimately we are impermanent, and that leads to non-self. And then that is actually an unsatisfactory state. And the reason the Buddha said that things are unsatisfactory then ties back into impermanence, because things keep changing, and as soon as you achieve it, the situation changes. It's not what it was, and then you're not happy with it, and then you have to strive again. So if you can get your head around unsatisfactoriness, impermanence, and non-self, that will help, hopefully, lessen your desires, your craving for more and more. And then people say, oh, okay, so that means that then you wouldn't have any craving for self-development or following the spiritual path. Well, no, because you would follow the spiritual path in a calm, cool, logical, the job just has to be done manner. And you wouldn't approach it in a way where you say, right, I'm going to get stuck into Buddhism, I'm just going to meditate all day, and then I'll be enlightened within 7 years and it'll all be over, because then you're falling back into desires. When you're on the Buddhist path, you just sort of survey the landscape. There's a lot of work to do, and there's a lot of pathways you can take depending on your personality and aptitude to arrive at the final point, and you just sort of take your time to figure out which is the best way for you, and then without a craving to finish the race, you just cool and calm, get on with the work, day in, day out, year in, year out, accept that there's setbacks, accept that you're not perfect, accept that it's difficult, accept that it's very subtle. Buddhism's a very subtle thing, and it can take a long time for things to sink in or for realizations to happen. I mean, some of the stuff I've been talking about tonight, I heard it 15 years ago and went, oh yeah, I think I know it. It sort of sounds okay. And then, at year, 9 years down the track, something happens, you go, boom, got it. Got it, I understand it. Deeply that makes sense. I can feel I can feel it in me that is undoubtedly correct and the truth. And really that's how it all works. So it can be slow and subtle, but take it from me, there is progress to be made. And I guess tonight's talk about right thought is really about the right way to handle lessening your desires and, not having anger in your mind, and the second one about harmlessness. Well, I mean, that's sort of fairly logical, and that's bound up in some other Buddhist teachings. But if you want to have a go at this path, the lessening of desires is really going to help. And the thought experiment to lessen the desire, to think about whatever it is that you want, think about it and go, do I really want it? Is it really going to make me happen? And then what happens after I achieve it? Is it really satisfactory? Is it going to be permanent? Is it part of my identity? What is my identity? Why is my identity fixed to achieving this desire? And if you use those three for any time you're getting caught up in some crazy desire, you may find that it'll just lessen it a bit, and you'll think a bit more coolly, and maybe you won't go and take out a $100,000 mortgage on a sports car that you don't really need, and think about things a bit more rationally, and avoid a bit of trouble. But by all means, if you've got the spare $100K and you really do want the sports car, and it's just sitting in the bank, well, all right, well maybe buy it then. So already that's half an hour. And that was my thoughts. Yeah, that were my thoughts tonight on right thought or intention, the second part of the Noble Eightfold Path. Thank you. So I'll just open up the floor now to a sort of a 10-minute or so Q&A. I'll call it a Q&A and an AMA. AMA is Ask Me Anything. So if you're new to Buddhism, or you're old to Buddhism and you've seen faults in my talk and you want to catch me out, ask me anything. Karma, rebirth, another part of the Eightfold Path. If you feel that you've got a handle on what we talked about tonight, but you've got another question, please ask it. And also anyone online, you can send through a question if you feel to the ladies running the audio visual.
Any questions from the floor before I check on online?
There must be something. Come on. Someone's got to have something. Can I ask you a question? Oh, great. Saves me asking an audience member a question. Like, how's your meditation going? Oh, good.
So you're a businessman.
Yeah.
And that started, I've owned my own business thinking that, I'm going to achieve this goal, right? And then it all fell apart. And I'm like, okay, well, what do I actually do with my life now? How do I serve others? So if, not having a desire would mean that you wouldn't have a desire to help people either. How would you explain that to me?
Oh, yeah. I'd put it back into it's not having desires. It's just lessening the sort of frequency and intensity of the type of desires that are going to distract you and take you down the wrong path. I mean, you do have to have a desire to get involved into Buddhism or to self-improve yourself, and then you have to have the desire or the motivation to get in the car and drive down here. So it's just about, I guess, the wise rationing and allocation of those desires and dampening them down. So apparently, I mean, I wouldn't know because I'm nowhere near it and not one, but the arahants, the very, very few people who might be walking the earth at any one time who are enlightened, which could just be maybe one person on the planet. The Buddha gave this analogy of the amount of enlightened people who'd finished the spiritual pathway as there's a turtle swimming in the ocean and there's a round life buoy on the ocean, I guess made of wood in those days, and every 500 years the turtle surfaces, and out of that 500 years that he surfaces on the ocean, thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of years go by, and finally the turtle comes up and puts his head through the life ring. So he's saying that enlightened people are very far and few between. There were a lot in his day because they got access to the Harvard University of Buddhism, being the Buddha being alive. But it's a very rare thing. Anyway, those people, apparently they can conduct their lives without desire. They're like I said before, when you go on the path, you just sort of get on with it. Like, you know that you have to play this role and you have to do this thing, and you just do it without grasping and clinging. You know, so if you're saying, okay, I've finished being in the business world, and I want to serve others, that's a very noble thought, and it's a very good thing to do, and it'll definitely lead to some good karma. But you should check with yourself and say, okay, why am I doing this? Why do I want to help others, beside it being a good thing, and one of the tenets of Buddhism? But from a desire point of view, why do I want to do it? Is it because I want accolades and recognition? Is it because I want people to say, oh, you're really good, well done, a pat on the back? Is that it? Or is it because there's a genuine desire to be a good person? So you really have to check that as well. Yep. So, but good thing, like helping other people is definitely way better than going out and generating heaps of money so you can waste it on material goods. But then sometimes you don't have a choice. You've got a family and that, and you've got to go out and earn a living. So. Any more? There must be another question. Oh, I don't think that's very loud, Sandra. There we go. You can always just use this one. Speaking of this if you want.
I think the mic has died. So we're coming up to Christmas.
Yeah.
Some people find joy in Christmas. Other people, it's a bit of a challenge. It can be quite a stressful time for a lot of people at Christmas time. So we're thinking about right thought. Have you got any hot tips to survive the festive season? Because you know the saying, right? If you think you're enlightened, go spend a week with your family.
Yeah, that's right.
I need the tips.
Okay. No, I'm not Ajahn Drew, and I don't think I'll ever probably meet an enlightened person, let alone be one myself. But the name of the game is progression and wisdom. Tips for the festive season. Even I'm struggling at Christmas time in my personal life, just because of families and this and that. There's trouble, so we're all in the same boat. That's just how it is in the lay world. I'd tie it back into tonight's talk about right thought. So you're in a bit of conflict coming up to Christmas. Oh, are we going to your parents' house or your parents' house? And my parents want the baby first. And no, Auntie so-and-so wants to come around. Oh, I can't stand her. Typical every single Christmas scenario. Christmas is a great example of how desires can go wrong. We've got these things in our mind. I'm going to have the perfect Christmas. I'm going to have the family around. There'll be the turkey and this and that and the other. And then on the day, it's unsatisfactory. Like, it is. People fighting, and you're eating too much, you get a stomach ache, and the house is a total bomb shelter. You would just approach it with right thought. So don't be angry and don't have ill will towards Auntie Ethel, who you hate. You shouldn't be hating her, right? Right thought is drop the hatred. It's not worth it. Harmlessness to other living beings. Don't rock up to the family Christmas party and go, right, I've got an axe to grind with Auntie Ethel from last year. Once I've had a couple of drinks or whatever it is, I'm going to get stuck into her. No, that harmlessness, just leave her alone. And the lessening of desires. Like, why does Christmas Day have to be the perfect day that goes off without a hitch and people aren't arguing and the food's perfect. It won't. People will probably get drunk and argue. The food won't be that good. It'll go off. The day might be too hot. Like it's just not going to be that good. It'll just be good enough. And if you can reduce the desire for the perfect Christmas day, you're then going to reduce a lot of conflict. And I'm now going to take my own advice because I've got a lot of negotiation and problems going on with the families about what we're doing. I'm going to take my own advice. Yeah, because it's unsatisfactory. Sure, there's moments and bits of joy and all the rest of it. But there's the other side of the coin as well. And it's impermanent. Christmas is gonna come and go. Boxing Day will rock up and we'll just go, oh my God, next thing's New Year's Eve. Oh my God, it's 2022. What happened to 2021? To me, it felt like it was only 6 months. It's all impermanent, and all of a sudden we're a year older. And also, I think Christmas has to be a time for reflection. Our company's finishing up tomorrow. I'm the best boss ever. I give bonuses and I give long holidays, and people don't leave. It's great. So we're starting a week early. And that's because I believe that the Christmas period should be a period of reflection. This is the time when you get your 3 weeks off or whatever. And yeah, sure, on the first week you race around and get ready for Christmas. And then between Christmas and New Year's, just chill out. Do you really have to race down south and make it the perfect Christmas holiday so when you go back to the office you can tell everyone, what'd you do for Christmas? Oh, not much. Oh, I went down south. And then down south just ends up like Perth City because everyone's down there. Why not stay in Perth and the roads are clear and weather's great? Christmas is definitely a time for reflection. And one of the things about the Buddhist society that I don't know could leave room for improvement is they should be running Sutta camps or meditation retreats over Christmas time, because there's so many people like me that can't get away. I can't take 9 days off from the family and business during the year, but at Christmas time, people like me can. And it'd be great if the monks were running a retreat over Christmas, from Christmas to the 2nd of January or whatever. It'd be brilliant. Anyway, next thing someone will say, oh, you should get back on the committee again and you can make it happen. Oh, no. No, I've done. Don't ask me.
I second that.
No, it's too much. Ajahn Brahm doesn't need my help. Any more questions? AMA, ask me anything on Buddhism, anything you're confused about. You can ask someone like me, because I'm just a lowly layman. I'm not a monk, and there's not hundreds of people in the hall, so you're not going to embarrass yourself by asking that silly question you weren't so sure about. Nothing? Oh, great. Oh, we'll just do the speaker so the people online can hear.
I would like to know the first tenet, is that what it's called, where thou shalt not kill, or don't kill other bit. Oh,
in the Bible, or?
Oh, no, in Buddhism.
Oh, the precepts?
Precepts, sorry.
Yeah.
To my dismay, I discovered that there are a lot of Buddhists that aren't vegetarian.
Uh-huh.
And I was quite surprised at that, because I thought that first one meant that you just don't consume anything that has been killed.
Okay.
But apparently that's not the case, and people are.
I love this question. I love it. I've answered it about 100 times. Let me just pull out my script. Buddhism and vegetarianism. Okay, first of all, first precept: don't kill other beings. That obviously also ties into what I said tonight: harmlessness. There's one caveat. If you're driving down the road and you kill a being accidentally, like I've done, like a kangaroo runs out in front of your Land Cruiser or whatever, and you kill it, well, you haven't broken the precept, because you didn't have the intention or the thought to kill it. You were just caught in a cycle of things out of your control. So that's the first thing. So if you're Buddhist and you step on an ant or you run over a dog or something like an accident happens, you're okay. You didn't have the wrong intention or thought. It's all good. Okay, vegetarianism. So actually recently my friend is writing a book about how badly we're treating animals in the world, and I'm not a vegetarian, and I've been doing some research with him on this book, and I'm pretty close to flipping, I think. Nevertheless, vegetarian is not a prerequisite of Buddhism at all, and the Buddha died eating a pork curry from food poisoning. Yep. Sorry?
It's controversial.
Why is that?
The dish was called Pig's Delight,
Oh, yeah.
and some people said it was, like truffles or something like that. So,
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
it depends on how you...
Well, yeah, okay. So anyway, he died eating meat. And he couldn't, because the monks rely on alms. So the monks aren't allowed to feed themselves. They have to have food presented to themselves. And the Buddha set this up so that if the monks were giving bad talks or misbehaving, people would stop offering them food, and then they'd starve, and then they'd have to disrobe, and then that'd sort of be natural selection for getting rid of bad monks, or Buddhism if it's not working in the community. And so the Buddha basically said, if they're offering some meat in the dish, we just have to eat it. Like, they've gone to all that effort to make it, and maybe it's all they've got, and we can't snub our nose at anyone because basically we're beggars, we're living a life of poverty. And so then he differentiated between killing an animal and eating an animal. So if the Buddha was offered a dish of meat, so obviously people, I guess, would preferentially try and give him vegetarian food, but if they didn't, the farmers grow on the cow, or in India, they worship cows, so the pig. And then the butchers slaughtered it, and then the housewife or whatever in the days prepared it. Then the Buddha was sort of 3 steps away from the killing. And so in modern society, you could say, well, as a lay person, if I go to Woolworths and buy some chicken, I'm 3 steps. I didn't do the killing. Like, once it becomes a packaged, prepared piece of meat, it's not a living being. It's the same as a plant. It's inert. And that's how it's dealt with in Buddhism. But definitely, if you can consciously help to reduce the suffering of animals in a practical manner, and that is vegetarianism, then that completely aligns with Buddhism as well. That's the answer. Okay,
it's livened up online.
all right, we've got 15
They're
minutes.
3 of the best.
And we've got 3 questions. Okay. Oh my God. This first one is a whole talk in itself. Eric, is there a process the Buddha recommended to evaluate what is right? So right thought, right view, right action. Yes. To be really short on this question, because we're running out of time and there's 2 others, he said, do good, which is basically an abbreviation of harmlessness. So if what you're about to do, is it harmlessness to another person? Is it a good thing to do? Recommended. The second thing he said was to purify the mind. So the action that you're doing, not only is it harmless, but is it in some way helping you, not go down the wrong path into conflict. And the third thing was, what was the third thing? I can't remember. I know so much, I've forgotten stuff. Anyway, I would say you're going to undertake some action. Is it going to hurt anyone? Is it going to hurt you? Is it going to do you good? And how does it feel? Like, we know when we're going to do the wrong thing. You know if you're going to go belt someone with a stick. You know that it's wrong. Unless maybe you're in an angry frame of mind, then you might not be thinking properly. So when doing an evaluation, don't be angry, don't do harm, and do yourself some good. And that would be a shortcut. I've given some other talks online, in particular right action. So if you go to YouTube and look at my right action speech, this is covered in detail. Number 2, I should have just said that at the start. Go to Right Action on the website. It's all there. Stephen Snyder. Not a question, but a thank you to someone new to Buddhism. I learned so much from listening. I live in Ashburn, Virginia. Hello, Virginia. And this is a great way to start the day. Most definitely, Stephen. And an even better way would be when you get up in the morning. I used to do this, but now I have to do it at night time because I'm just busy with a kid and that. Get up in the morning, get up 30 minutes early, prep yourself for 5 minutes, make sure you're awake, and try and sneak in a 25-minute meditation every day or every third day, and life will be better. It will definitely be better. I remember when I was single and the president of the Buddhist Society 5 years ago. I've been married, divorced, single, married again, and in that period when I was single, it was bliss because I was able to get in 3 meditations a day. I loved it. It was so good. What have I done with my life? Having said that, meditation is not the whole pathway, and I'm meditating less now, but I'm definitely happy with progress in other parts of the Eightfold Path. So if you find yourself in a situation where you're really enjoying the meditation, but your life circumstances reduce it, focus on other things. And again, I gave a talk on, I think it was Right View, and I talked about this. So go to the Right View talk, and you'll see that. Okay, the third and last. Cassandra, a very English name, Henriksson from Sweden. I wonder about the look on they must be transgender, and non-binary people in Buddhism. Would they be allowed to ordain? Thank you for a great talk. Interesting. So there's no right or wrong in Buddhism on, for a start, homosexuality. The Buddha was just silent on it, and it never came up, and I don't know, maybe it wasn't very prevalent in medieval India, so they never had to deal with it. I certainly imagine they never had to deal with transsexual people. So I guess because he was silent on homosexuality and didn't condemn it, and if you're a gay person today, there would be nothing to stop you from ordaining as a monk, and I'm certain, in fact I even know one. I know a monk who was in the LGBTI community, if that's what it's called, who ordained as a monk, so that's all good. Transgender, I'm not sure, because the monks aren't allowed to cohabitate with the opposite sex. So if you're non-binary, I'm assuming that means you've still got your original sexual organs you were born with. Now that means you could ordain, but you could only, if you were born as a male and had those functioning things, you could only live with the monks. And if you were born as a female and you had all that equipment, you could only live with the nuns, because they're very strict about segregating the sexes, so there's no misbehaviour. And transsexual, I don't know if I'm the right person to be answering this. Maybe you can ask Ajahn Brahm. Transsexual. Again, I imagine it would be determined by what functioning genitalia you have, and whatever you have is where you would go, whether it's a nun or a monk. So, in short, I'm sure you could be a transsexual monk or nun, as long as you were allocated to the right monastery. Yeah, I'm certain of it. So, but anyway, ask the monks. Yeah, that's right. That's right. But they obviously keep the males and females apart, so to lessen desires and stop those potential problems. We're not perfect. Yeah, that's right. And I mean, for layperson interest, monks aren't allowed to touch females, and vice versa for nuns, not allowed to touch males, and a monastic is not allowed to be in the same room on their own with the opposite sex. They always have to have a companion, whether it be a layperson of the same sex or another monk or nun with them, just to make sure that there's no rule breaking going on and everyone's safeguarded. So that's good. Okay, is that it? That's it. Alrighty, thanks everyone. Thanks for coming. Thanks everyone online. Thank you. They keep asking me to come back, so I guess I'll be back in about 6 weeks.
He'll be back.
All right, okay.
We haven't kicked him out yet.
I've still got 3 to go, I think, before I finish the path. So
How many have you done? Because
5.
it's 8, so
There's 8. I've got 3 left,
you got 3 left.
and then I should be done. Thanks for coming tonight.
And then you can move on to the 37 factors of enlightenment. What about that?
I'm just a simple lay guy.
Factors of awakening.
So I'm just going to finish up. We'll do 3 bows to... I'm not going to do any chanting. I'm not capable of it. 3 bows, and the bows are to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, and we'll call it quits. And then anyone who wants a cup of tea or a few snacks and a bit of a chat, I'll also be there. We'll go to the kitchen for sort of a little bit of time. All good.
Excellent. Okay,
Great.
let's pay our
Thank
respects
you.
and then let's drink
go.
tea.
Let's party.